Nearly 300 people have been killed in a wave of violent raids and attacks by Sudan's rapid support forces, with many others still missing. One of the deadliest attacks happened in the village of Hilat Hamid, where the RSF reportedly killed civilians, including pregnant women and children. North Kordofan is now one of the fiercest battlegrounds in a civil war that's been raging since April of 2023 between the RSF and Sudan's National Army. The conflict has torn communities apart, triggering one of the world's worst humanitarian crises. So far, tens of thousands are dead and over 13 million people have been forced to flee their homes. As the fighting escalates, aid agencies and human rights groups are urging the international community to step in, warning that without urgent help, civilians will continue to suffer. With me now on Zoom to talk about situation in Sudan is an international affairs analyst from the UK, Paul Ejime. Good to have you join us on Well Now. Since April of 2023, Sudan hasn't been the same. What do you make of this lingering conflict with its fresh tweets, especially this latest attack that has left nearly 300 people dead?
Good afternoon, Ambassador, and good afternoon to the viewers. So the Sudan war is one of they now call it one of the forgotten war, and it's because the international community seems to have been focusing somewhere else, and you also blame them. Perhaps there is what you call attention fatigue from the donor fatigue. People they are not remember for how many years that Bashir was there from 1989. Remember the Darfur War, and then the crisis continued after he was removed in 2019, and then you had the soldiers come on. They set up a military civilian administration, but was also toppled in 2021 by these two people fighting this war today. The head of the military, General Boham, and then his deputy, General Dagalo. So who is leading the this rapid support force that morphomosis of the Janjaweed, if you remember, the Janjaweed that was were used by the ousted president to fight the Darfur War. So it's about power struggle between these two men, and none is letting off. And you see Sudan changing the Khartoum changing hands from the main national army and then RSF.
Mr. Ejime,
RSF is about 100,000.
Yes.
And this is the problem. Nobody's, and it has been externalized.
That's the issue. That's the issue, Mr. Ejime. You just mentioned that this is like a power tussle between two men, and in the midst of it, more than 13 million people are displaced, with tens of thousands of people killed. It just really sounds inhuman. What do you think can be done at this time? Because human rights organizations, aid groups are calling on the international community to act swiftly, but you yourself have mentioned that this seems like a forgotten war.
Okay, in a conflict like this, usually the responsibility, the onus usually falls on the citizens of this country that are fighting to say, well, enough is enough. But instead of being rigid, because outsiders will come to give support about reconciliation and then ceasefire, but unless and until the people involved decide by themselves to end this war, it's not going to end. Or maybe when those who are supporting them, when the supply line has cut.
But how do we get, Mr.
talking...
James, apologies, I'm really butting in. How do we get these people involved, to come to a table and end the war? Because when we're talking about the people involved, it does appear like it's these two powerful men on two opposing sides, because their loyalists, those who are following them, appear to have little or no power at all to perhaps even face them and tell them what the experiences are.
And so that is the situation. And until they become fatigued by the fact that they can no longer draw power from where they are getting the support, about more than 150,000 people have died in this war. We talked about 300 just at the weekend. And then, but how can, whom are you? Are you governing? Are you ruling, over the grave and bodies of people? If you are seeking power, is it not to use it to, to govern? But can you govern where you have people dying every day through, kinetic from weapons?
Mr.
So
Juma,
it shows that, yes.
Do you suppose there is external interference in the ongoing war in Sudan?
Of course, there is. But it is the rat in the house that tells the rat in the bush where you have food. So the onus, like I said, is on these two people to tell, to reason that the people that are dying are their own people. So if your people are dying, I mean, they should have the conscience to stop the war. That the blood of how many people can you kill because of your political ambition, or if you want wealth? Because at times Sudan is rich in gold and all that. But how many people will now die before you realize your political ambition? Because that is what it is.
It's
so
like
I think it's the onus is on them. They have to stop this ceaseless and senseless killing of their own people.
I'm wondering who would be able to talk, this much sense really into them, because these are men, matured adults who are making decisions and making moves that they think is right. At this point, what role does an organization like the African Union play in restoring peace in Sudan?
Well, unfortunately, African Union has not been found to have the capacity or the capability, or in fact the leadership to be able. Remember that even in Ethiopia, where they are, there is war, between the government and then the others that are the rebels. So they have not mustered that political will, the power to be able to tell their colleagues, the leaders in Africa. It's not just AU. Other countries in Sudan, there are regional organizations that have also tried, but they have not been able. So what is happening is that the UN, for instance, is backing the government of Baham that is there, which lost Khartoum for 2 years and only regained it this year. So power is shifting, moving back and forth, because you said it, that Africa ought to get its own act together. African leaders ought to come together and find a solution to African problems. But they have not been able to do that, which is, is unfortunate. It's a sad commentary on the continent that they are not able to. And that is why you find Africa where Africa is today. That the leaders are not leading by example.
You have said it, it is what it is at the moment. But I am actually curious as to the way forward. What can be done in the short term to restore peace? Because this is a humanitarian catastrophe. Tens of thousands of people have died, and many of them know nothing about this war between these two men who are holding their country to ransom. Mr. Jime.
I think there is also religion there. There is in that food, they talk about genocide. But the Court of Justice, the government in Sudan had taken UAI, that the government of United Arab Emirates that is supporting the Rapid Support Front, that is accused of committing genocide in Darfur. It has taken them to the international court, but the court said it doesn't have the what is it, jurisdiction to try, or that nothing can't establish that genocide has happened. So that is the, you know, and what you would call you know, conspiracy by the international community, because it's Africa that is involved. If it were other people, you know, look at Ukraine, how people are going, if Gaza, and everybody is rallying around. This has been going on for years. Right. And it appears, and that is why it is called a forgotten war. It depends on the strategic interest of, you know, the superpower of the powers that rule the world. They don't consider it that Sudan is of any interest to them, and so
hopefully
can be allowed to be dying like that.
Hopefully, the superpowers would, you know, gain interest, and we put an end to this very unfortunate war in Sudan. Paul Ejime is an international affairs analyst. Thank you very much for your time on World Now.